Hello. Hello.
Okay, I don't see Councilman Severing on as an attendee.
Let me give him a call. Call Blake Severing.
Calling Blake Severing work.
Councilman Swanson is having some, Severing is having some technical difficulties. So he tried to go on through his normal way and was unable to make connection. So he's downloading Zoom on his phone and hopes to join us shortly. So why don't we go ahead and get started this evening? And thanks, Council, for spending your evening serving the citizens again. And thanks for the public who have joined us. We appreciate your participation and look forward to a productive council meeting this evening. We're grateful for Council Member Barker, who has very enthusiastically agreed to give us a thought and invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. So Councilman Barker, why don't we go ahead and start with you this evening?
All right, we'll start off with the invocation. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful that we could meet this evening as a city council and residents of North Ogden. We're grateful for the technology that we have, that we can all meet individually, but through online that we can gather together. We're grateful for the opportunity to discuss these upcoming topics, and please bless that we'll be guided by thy Spirit to make the correct decisions for what's best for our city. These things we say in thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Council Member Barker. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, John, for getting the flag on.
If everyone will stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Barker, for that invocation and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now move into our consent agenda, which would consist of approving the minutes of September 8th, 2020 council meeting and the September 22nd, 2020 council meeting. Is there any discussions or corrections on the minutes? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes of September 8th and September 22nd council meeting. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes for September 8th and September 22nd, 2020.
Thank you, Council Member Ekstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Councilman Swanson, we'll go with your second on that. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussions? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll now move into our active agenda and we'll seek public comments. There are several ways you can participate this evening. One is through chat or by visiting with us online. I would just remind you of a couple of things. If you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, we would appreciate that very much. And also, if you would state your full name and address, we would appreciate that. And we welcome Councilmember Severing, who's now joined us. So with that in mind, John, if you would watch for public comments and let us know if we have any. John?
Okay, yep. Nothing yet.
Okay. Anything, John?
Still nothing.
Okay, well, maybe while we're waiting that, I could read some comments that were sent to me and I think to other members of the city council. I've talked with John about this and he's authorized me to read these comments. Came from Dwayne and Haley Richards, who are residents of our city. Dear Mayor Berube and City Council members, this is Dwayne and Haley Richards at 139 East Country Boy Drive. We won't be able to attend the meeting tonight as we are celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. So with that, congratulations on 25 years. We wanted to send an email your way expressing our concerns again for the 7-Eleven that, that is still proposed at the corner of 1700 North and Washington Boulevard. Even though the plan has been revised, it still seems like a gateway building that suggests welcome to 7-Eleven instead of welcome to North Ogden. There are signs on every side of the building saying 7-Eleven from what we can tell. And the problem is too, we don't want a gas station in our neighborhood. We don't want to look at gas pumps out the windows of our home. We don't want the added traffic and harm that can come from potential gas pumps leaking. We don't think there's any way the council would ever agree to switch the pumps in the building and make the pumps the gateway to North Ogden, but it's fine to have them inside the neighborhood side of the development for us to enjoy. The roads inside the development are really narrow as well. It seems like way too much traffic for these roads. Please don't let the vision of this area go to trash. It's sad a gas station was allowed as a use in a walkable area in the first place. We've expressed this before, but it is so true. The decisions you make today will impact our city, community, and neighborhoods for years to come. Don't just sell out the idea of the original design for the sake of getting a business in there. Thank you for taking the time to read our thoughts. Have a wonderful day. John, any other comments?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, well, I would assume if there were going to be comments, we would have heard from someone by now. So with that, let's move into item 4 on our agenda, which is a discussion or action to consider a site plan for the 7-Eleven project located at 1700 North and Washington Boulevard. Our presenter will be Rob Scott, our city planner. And John, is the applicant with us this evening?
Yes, we've got Ryan as well as a couple of his team members.
Okay, we will surely want to hear from them. So let's start with Rob Scott.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and those that are in attendance tonight. I have submitted a staff report that describes the information that was provided. Obviously, there's been quite a number of meetings with respect to this, the most recent one being on September 1st, and I provided a copy of the minutes from that meeting. I went back and as I reviewed those minutes, I summarized on page 2, as you can see on your screen, the items that the city council determined they wanted to see incorporated into the design of the proposed building. So as you can see, the orientation, there was some discussion about orienting the building on an angle. The clock tower was deemed to be not something that was necessary. The council did describe that they were interested in a 2-story building. The comment was made that the building elevations would have some variation and with high quality building materials. Associated with that would be an outdoor seating area with direct access from the building. There was also a request to consider an atrium and design for a restaurant in the future, and some discussion about electronic charging stations should be considered. So in the next couple paragraphs, I just summarized some of this information for you. The site plan is just under an acre. The building size is shown as 3,000 square feet. The information that we've been given doesn't give us details as far as the amount of landscaping and pavement at this time, but that would come later as part of a more detailed review. The landscape plan has been submitted to us today, and we do have a copy of that, so I'm sure we'll want to have the applicant go through that and describe that for you. Also, I understand that he's been working on coming up with a building elevation that would be a 2-story building, but at this point, he'll have to give an update on that as well. In terms of parking, the parking standard for gas stations is 1 stall per 375 square feet. The building, as I mentioned, was 3,000 square feet, and so the requirement is for 8 stalls. The site plan shows 18 stalls, so they would meet that requirement. The building elevations that have been shown basically show a single-story, 21-foot high building. The exterior finishes are identified in the table, and they're a combination of brick, ephes, wall finish, and metal. And basically, what the staff is suggesting at this point is that you take a look at these, I consider them preliminary drawings and designs, and identify those things that you find acceptable, those things that you would like to have them do some additional work on. And then once the council is able to give an appropriate direction for what you would like to see, then the applicant can go forward with the final site plan designs, and we will obviously process those and bring those back to you. With that, I did include in this staff report, just for your remembrance, the previous considerations that the Planning Commission gave to this, their recommendation and what have you. Our recommendation tonight is to have the City Council evaluate the revised submittal to determine if they are acceptable, and based on the council's determination and direction, then the applicant can proceed to a final design submittal. So with that, Mayor and Council, I'd be happy to answer questions. I suspect that Mr. Forsyth would probably be in a better position to answer some of them, but I'll be happy to answer those that I can as well. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Rob, for your great presentation. Before we hear from the applicant, are there any questions for Rob from the council? Okay, seeing none, I think it would be appropriate maybe to hear from the applicant, maybe show us the landscape plan that came in today so that the council has some additional information. And then council, we can ask the applicant any questions. So with that, John, do you want to bring the applicant on?
Yes, we should be able to hear from Ryan right now. If he would like any of his team members included, we can add them as a panelist as well.
Thanks, council members. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now, Ryan, can you just give us your full name and your address just for the record, please?
Yes, sir. Ryan Wade Forsyth, 1835 South Highway 89, Perry, Utah. I guess to start out, I'd like to just the landscape plan is up right now. If you look at this site plan, we tried to square up the building directly, directly with the corner, but as you can see, some easements that serve the rest of Prominence Point. There's a sewer line and there's another storm line that made us kind of chamfer off those sides so that we would not be building over those areas. But I actually really like the way that this lays out, whereas it provides more of a, we could have some tables and umbrellas and things that would make a really nice seating area on the outside and make it look a lot more approachable back on the corner on 1700 North in Washington. So I actually like that, but I do feel like it was a really good idea to turn that building sideways and make that work. Originally, we had 6 pumps that were single pumps, so it was a much longer canopy. In order to fit it, we took it down to 6 pumps that were stacked, but that was also taking into consideration future electric charging areas. So if you look over by the dumpster, we had on either side where the lawn was, and then over by the dumpster, we've added parking stalls that could someday be converted to that when that need would be economically feasible. It would allow people to shop in the store, sit at a table while their cars charge, or those sorts of things. So I like it. I think it helps the walkability. It opened up the space quite a bit more by turning it, and also by shortening the pump canopy. It makes it just a lot more open. So I like the recommendations. We tried to make the landscape be manageable, but the direction that I gave the landscape architect was manageable, but very nice. I know we wanted to keep some of the landscape lower to the ground in front of the store so that we didn't block or impede any of the sight triangle required. So there was plenty of visibility for cars, but also provide, a nice feel for that corner. If you go back to the elevations, there was one that I made one little tweak today. I don't know if Lynn has that. She mentioned she might be able to put it into the slides, but it was, do you have that by chance, John? Or can you go to the elevations? Yeah, right there. That's it. It's hard to tell. It's hard to see because you're only seeing one corner at a time and you're not seeing the way the whole building will look. But if you look at the elevation number 4, the south elevation, and you look on the right-hand side up at the top, there's that angled little roof section right there. And if you look at the top elevation, right above the 7-Eleven sign, there's another wide angled roof right there. And what we thought is if we raised up the elevation out on the corner right there, the southeast elevation, so it shows it at 25 feet, I believe, right there, and angled that roof back to match the Prominence Point elevations with those angled roofs, but also bring in that cannery red brick and classic, just nice look. That's what that is. It's hard to show on a set of plans very well, but essentially the 7-Eleven, that I added more glass to that chamfered area, the elevation number 3. I added more chamfered glass and raised it 4 feet, and then sloped that roof back directly towards the front and the pumps. And that's, if you recall the Beans and Brews that we built, it had one of those large sloping roofs back towards, away from the front doors and the Beans and Brews. And I think that was a good thought too. And then we did add some extra lighting and some awnings on the side elevations, elevation 4 and elevation 2, which would be directly adjacent to Washington and 1700 North. We did look at doing the 2-story or the atrium, and we couldn't make it lay out in a way that was proportionate to the size of the building. On a 3,000 square foot building, every time we tried to draw it, it kind of just, it overpowered the rest of the building, and we couldn't make it work. But I think that the mayor's point of having a meeting place and a place that people can enjoy and shop, especially with trends going towards electric cars, I thought that was a good idea, to have places where it would be a place that someone actually would stop and hang out for 20 minutes while they were waiting for those things, or while they had their morning coffee or whatnot. I think we just did that through patio space and nice landscaping and that sort of thing. I'm happy and open to answering any questions, and I think that we've all, the history, and so I'm happy to just answer any questions or concerns or thoughts, from here. So.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Anything else you'd like to add before we solicit comments from the council?
Maybe one thing, I did move the electrical rooms further around the corners to make sure that we avoided having any utility or anything like that. And then I had them place a tree in front of those locations. So those are going to be hidden from view completely. I tried to think of as many little things as I could, but no, I think that's it. So.
Okay, thank you. Council, let's open up for questions or comments you may have. So does anyone have a question or comment of Ryan?
Ryan?
Yes.
Councilman Severing, go ahead.
Yes, Ryan, I noticed on the site plan that you have a spot out toward the front of the building where there's a planter box. Now, I love the idea. The more nature, the more trees, the more flowers you can present, to me is really, really awesome. But wouldn't that be in the way of larger trucks or even the cars that are pulling into and out of the 7-Eleven convenience store?
Yeah, we had to make that smaller in order to make the truck fit around to deliver fuel. But those planters were part of the Prominence Point Road. And so we shrunk that planter to make it more accessible. But yes, I agree with you. But I think we shortened it almost 20 feet to make it so that those semi trucks could come around and make a loop without having to continue on through that lane to go over and exit by the car wash. We wanted to keep as much of that traffic localized to this little area as possible. But that was part of the Prominence Point design, I guess.
Well, I appreciate your effort at trying to be consistent with the Prominent Point design, but to me, it seems like whether you're trying to get larger trucks, fuel trucks in, or other vehicles, or even like a snowplow, seems like eventually it's just not going to be the wisest location for a planter bed. But that's just my thought.
Yeah.
But thank you for what you've done. I appreciated the diligent effort you've made to make this building look presentable and cannery-like. I like what you've been able to design.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Severing. Councilmember Stoker, do you have any comments this evening?
There, I unmuted myself. I like what he's, I appreciate the fact that he's tried to work. He's definitely not tried, but he's worked with us and taken the considerations in and the suggestions that we've had. It does look better than their usual square box of a 7-Eleven. And I do wonder, will there be more than one sign that says 7-Eleven on all sides of the building, like the question was asked?
The way I designed it, we did put signs just trying to make, because it all of a sudden became a 5-sided or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided building. We were just trying to make it look, that all of those walls were full and architecturally, so not every side of the building. So you can see the 2 northeast and the west, but the rest of it, yes, there's 4 signs on it that kind of I did that more just trying to make them not look bland, I didn't want the sides to look bland, essentially.
Are they absolutely necessary?
No.
I mean, everybody knows it's a 7-Eleven.
Sure. Yeah,
I don't know that all those signs need to be on the building. That's just my comment, but
yeah.
Councilmember Stoker, any other comments?
No.
Councilman Swanson, your comment?
Yeah, the same comment that Councilwoman Stoker just had. John, can you scroll down just a little bit? Other way, sorry. Hang on, let me just minimize all this. So on the, Ryan, on the east elevation and the south elevation, and, I'm sure on the southeast elevation, obviously, they want something out there that says 7-Eleven, but would it be possible to eliminate that 7-Eleven signage on number 4 and number 2 and just have some kind of architectural, some nice looking something or other decorative thing that was on there that was cannery-esque, but wasn't just glaring red and green 7-Eleven.
Absolutely. That's no problem. Yep.
Other than that, I appreciate what you've done with the additional sloped roofing on the chamfer sides. And yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Thanks.
Councilman Barker?
Yeah, I like all the work that Ryan's put into this. I don't know any developer that's worked harder to get one building in our city. The only thing I see with this site plan, the development agreement doesn't allow EFS, and the car wash came and asked for that, and we said no, so I don't think we can allow EFS on this one either, but that's an easy fix for you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Anything else, Councilman Barker?
Nope.
Council Member Ekstrom, do you have some comments this evening?
I do. I'm not thrilled that we have a 7-Eleven that's our gateway building, but it's an approved use, and Ryan Forsyth has done an incredible job of really trying to make it something spectacular, given that it is a convenience store and a gas station. One of the things I concur with both Cheryl and Phil about changing the 7-Eleven to do maybe kind of a cut metal relief of maybe the mountains or something like that, something that's distinctively North Ogden, that would be kind of fun, so that we have some decorative elements. The other thing that I think that would make it a little more gateway-esque is doing that landscaping and making it really beautiful. I'm wondering if we could put like some sort of water feature in there too, that would kind of our Cold Spring element to it. that might have just a, bubbling fountain or something like that with people out in the seating area. But other than that, I think you have done a fantastic job really trying to incorporate the elements that we asked for within reason. Of course, we was like, why don't you put up a tower and all of this, and you really have done a nice job. I really feel like the shape of the building, the orientation of the building gives it much more, a special feel as opposed to just kind of your standard 7-Eleven, corner store box. So just with those couple of suggestions, I think this looks really nice. I love the red brick. I love kind of the cannery feel that you've put to it, which just kind of ties it in. So I think if you can add a couple of more elements just to, that are really just decorative, I think it would be really nice. I like this sloped roof. And, the planters and things, hopefully they don't run into problems with the trucks turning around, but that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. And I appreciate Councilmember Ekstrom's comment about the fact that I don't think a lot of our citizens know that that was an approved use in the original development plan. So it does not take any amendment to the plan because that was an approved use. And I think Ryan has pointed that out in several of his comments that that was the case. It was an approved use. And in regards to the comments about a gateway building, I don't think we've had a good definition of that. And to Ryan's point, what was projected there would be pretty hard to put there. Ryan, I'm really cognizant of the neighbors' concern about their view of gas pumps on the back side. Is there any way we can put trees or anything along the property line in the back to kind of make that more aesthetic to the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. As you can see that road, you can see that right where the arrow is right now, that's the property line and that's the road that's servicing all of the rest of those uses that will be there. So I would have to work with Jack or whoever that property owner is. I don't know if Jack sold that yet, to put those trees just west of that street. But I definitely understand the citizens' point of view and concern as well.
Yeah, would they be viewing it from that west side primarily? I'm just, once again, I think it's a good point that the view they're going to have is gas pumps, and if there's any way we can minimize that, I think we ought to give it a shot.
Sure.
Just one other question, Ryan, and I don't see that. My eyes aren't as good as most of the other council members here, but where would the sign be? Usually there's a sign out there showing the price and per gallon. Where's that located?
There's one right on up by the dumpsters right there. And then there's one down on the other road, monument signs.
Okay. Any concerns about that, council members, where the signs are located? And if not, just one other comment that was always brought up, and it's not essential or big deal to me. I just don't want us to forget it. For a lot of time, there was the desire to have a nice sign that said, "Welcome to North Ogden." Has that gone by the wayside?
So Mayor, I think the EDC had talked about, and this was before you joined the EDC, but was putting that sign further south on Washington Boulevard, the actual "Welcome to North Ogden" sign, near the animal hospital and that vacant field.
Okay. Is that acceptable, council?
Mayor, I do have a question on the signage.
All right, Councilmember Stoker, go ahead.
Ryan, aren't those signs are pretty big, aren't they? That says, it says 7-Eleven and the prices of the gas.
These ones are the smaller monument signs, so they're, I would say probably, the ones that I've seen recently are probably 6 feet wide by maybe 4 feet high, and then they have a small like bricked base to them. So total height, they're probably 6 by 6 or right in that range. They're not the really, really big ones, no.
So the one that's up by the dumpsters, could that be easily viewed from those coming up 1700 North or coming down without the same sign there on that corner?
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Well, you've got the 2 monument signs.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering if the one that's down on the fate will be by 1700 North could the people see that, the one up by the dumpsters, without having to have that one down there?
I don't think they would, because the way it's oriented, but maybe what I've seen at we just did one in Taylorsville where we put a small price sign up on the fuel canopy instead. That just said the price point, how much the diesel and the gas was on the canopy. But
yeah, I really have, I don't like the fact that there would be that signage on 1700, and I wouldn't like it. So I'm thinking the residents wouldn't like it either, or the citizens.
Councilmember Stoker. And Ryan, I've seen some very nice signs that would tie into the decor of the building with, kind of brick and the sign in the middle with a cap on the top, particularly on the Washington Boulevard. And I think if you need the 2 signs, could you, and I'm not trying to add a whole bunch of cost here, I'm just trying to make this as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Is there a way you could do those signs that way? Kind of brick them up with a cap on top and then the sign in the middle, so they're very nice looking signs.
Yeah, I would prefer that if that's acceptable, and if we could make it a little bigger and better, absolutely.
And I'm not as familiar with the sign ordinance as probably others here, but yeah, I was thinking something similar to this that's on the screen now.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Councilwoman Stoker, would that be better for you, or are you still concerned about signs on 2 places?
It's probably better than the original one.
Councilman
It
Swanson.
still gives me a little heartburn.
That's okay. Appreciate your comments. Councilman Swanson, did you have some additional comments?
I did. As far as the, excuse me, the residents over on Country Boy, once the rest of the apartments and townhomes and such are built, how much of this are they actually going to see? If we go west from this station, when all of those buildings are built, those in the single family homes, barring maybe 1 or 2 that are on the south, and then again, depending on whatever ends up being built on the property, the severing property across 1700, I don't think those residents are going to see much of that canopy or the lighting at all. The apartment residents, townhome residents who will be coming in after this thing is built, if it's approved, would know it was there and would be choosing to live there with it already in place. So I'm just wondering how much of that they're going to see with that development finished. And then the other thought that I had as our 2 councilwomen were speaking is on that south side and the east side, the one that faces Washington, the one that faces 1700, we have a really nice city logo that has a kind of a mountainscape. And if that were in, rusted cut iron kind of thing, and it said North Ogden underneath it, that might be a nice, I don't know if 7-Eleven would allow that, but it would certainly look nice, I think. And certainly let people know that they're in North Ogden. But as far as the monument signs, Mayor, I like what you've suggested. I would prefer not to have one on 1700. I think anybody on 1700 is going to know either from coming north on Washington and seeing the sign at the north end of the North Monument sign, or coming south on Washington and seeing it. I think everybody's going to know what the price of gas is there. So if we could do away with the one on 1700, I would prefer that.
Okay. One issue that hasn't been addressed that's come up several times is the traffic load. And I know in speaking with Chief Quinney, 1700 is almost, I can't remember the exact term he used, but it's not a residential street. It's got quite a load on it, and that's not Ryan's problem. But any concerns about the traffic flow at all?
There's always been a concern with that. Any ideas?
Well, I think the reality is as this develops out and there's going to be something there on that corner. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is it's a concern of the residents, and I'm not sure there's an easy answer to that, because you think about the load, particularly with some of the projects that are being requested further south on Washington Boulevard. 1700 has almost become an access to 89 and out to the freeway. So just didn't want to forget that concern that's been discussed several times. Councilman Swanson, did you have a comment? I saw you unmute there for a moment.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, we will probably need to speak with UDOT on that intersection about protected turns. Coming west on 1700, trying to turn left with traffic that may be coming either off 89 through the neighborhood there, or coming out of the village at Prominence Point and then continuing east on 1700. I think protected turns would be advantageous to have there, and coming north, being able to turn left onto 1700 into that for the residents that live there, and Country Boy area. I think a protected left there would also be advantageous.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, Lauren Gardner is on this call or on this meeting, and he's the city engineer, could answer any specific questions the council may have.
Okay, or he may actually have some comments that we'd surely be happy to hear from him if he has some comments, and then any additional questions from council. Lauren, would you like to give us some of your thoughts or concerns? Or
sure. Let me just add that as Councilman Swanson mentioned, that the signal there, whether we have left turns that are protected or unprotected, all of that is really dependent on the traffic counts and the amount of flow that is measured there. So UDOT would make those changes as they are warranted. They just don't automatically put a protected lane, but it has to have a warrant that justifies it. And 1700 North is one of our collector roads, so it's intended to have more traffic than a local road. And it definitely does. It goes all the way from Fruitland all the way out to 89. And it's got a few stops along the way, but it is a connector right there. So.
okay. Anything else, Laura?
That's all I have right now.
Thank you for your comments. Council, do you have any questions for Lauren? Okay, any other questions from the applicant? Phil, you could be right on the development there. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I would really like to see if we can't hear what the citizens have to say and see if we can't put some trees there to try to make it as aesthetically pleasing as we can. But I think Ryan said he'd be happy to try to look at that. I don't know what the downside.
I agree. Until those buildings are up, I think trees or whatever, even if they're there after the buildings, I think that would be great.
Okay. Ryan, are you willing to take a look at that?
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to mention too. This plan only shows our parcel, but if you look at the surrounding areas, like directly north of the pumps, future landscape islands that Village of Prominent Points has planned for. So although this shows a lot of white space around the north and the west side of this property, I think that as those develop out, as especially the council will have the opportunity to, kind of, if we pick a really good landscaping theme right now, we can push from the corner back, and in each one of those site plan applications, the council should be able to, to do that. I'm certainly willing to see if I can even maybe landscape that portion while I'm under construction, as I'm doing it, but it might change as those applicants come in and propose something different. But yeah, I agree with the trees, and I'm absolutely willing, but I did want to point out that this does just show what is my parcel, and the bigger picture of what's going to be done is I think is going to be a lot more conducive to showing exactly how this lays out.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. If my memory serves me right, we've talked about several things before we enter into discussion for a motion here. One is the type of signs.
Good.
And there has been some feedback on the sign on 1700 North. We've also talked about not having so many 7-Eleven signs, but maybe some type of decorative decor that would make the building look a little bit more attractive. We've talked about the trees, if we can. And Ryan, I think you brought up an issue we might have to do to amend the development plan. There didn't seem to be concerns on that. Are there any other issues that I forgot?
Mayor, I had just one thought.
Okay, Councilmember Ekstrom, go ahead, please.
I was just thinking about that monument sign on 1700. Could we, instead of having it be, the prices and 7-Eleven, have that just be a North Ogden sign with our logo and, kind of like we have on our planters and our the garbage things that we have that we can get from the city, something like that. That's just got the plaque there, and then put the prices, just as Ryan suggested, on the awning itself, so it's visible to be seen from 1700. But that right there on the corner, right there on 1700 would just be a North Ogden sign with the red brick and the placard and in concrete, I think is what it usually is done. If we could do something like that, Ryan, would that?
I appreciate your comment there, Council Member Ekstrom. This is just my personal feeling. We have numerous canopies at some of our stores where we have petrol, and to me it looks really cheap when you get that pricing up on the canopy. In fact, Ryan, I don't know what the canopy is going to look like, if it's going to be the standard green and white, or if there's some concessions on the canopy that could make that look nice. But just my personal opinion, and if you've seen that up on the canopy, the pricing, it really looks kind of I don't know, cheap to me, but just my opinion.
And maybe if I could throw in a few things based on everybody's comments. I agree with, taking down the two signs that are facing south and facing east. And I like the idea of on that, place that I was trying to fill something in, I like the idea of doing like a powder coated metal North Ogden logo on both of those. And where EFIS is not allowed, I must have missed that. And I think we could change that to either a hardy siding or like a cement board with something that would be a good background to those signs. On the Beans and Brews, we did a really nice concrete board that I really like the look of. Maybe I would propose that and propose that North Ogden logo with the mountainscape. I like that logo, and I don't think 7-Eleven would have any problem with that. And especially by adding more sides to this building, we can make the building, we've got plenty of 7-Eleven signs. I think we can do the same thing. And especially with those cool patios in front, I think it meets that gateway style. But I think less is more sometimes. I agree with Mayor. Every time I've seen the signs up on the canopy, it looks really cheap because they're undersized and they're the only thing that's lit up, and it just really looks cheap. I would prefer to keep that sign, and I do agree with Councilman Swanson as well, because we do have that tree that's going to be grown blocking that sign to the residential to the west as that landscape matures. And I think we can get away without that sign if the if council likes that, but I think it actually looks nice if it's done appropriately with some brick. Another way that I would be more than happy to offer on the canopy, the way that I've seen the canopies look nice is by bricking the columns, matching the columns. It's added expense, but at this point, I would prefer to make this it's almost less expensive to make some decisions and go for it, than to redesign it a whole bunch of times. And so if that's something that would be appealing, I'm more than happy to offer that up as not a concession, but as an offer. And I think it looks really nice to do that.
Yeah, I think that's really a nice offer, Ryan. Just one question though, is the canopy going to be the standard 7-Eleven with the white and green? And because that's going to be, how tall is the canopy in comparison to the building, just for curiosity's sake?
If John, if you could pull up, I don't know, but I think those plans show the elevations. So does that say the height? It says 17.6 and the building will be 25.
25.
Yeah. And then it looks like, see, this is just the basic canopy with the steel posts, and I'd be more than happy to brick those up 12 feet and do a nice seal cap there. I think it looks really nice to do that. And then likewise, where Councilman Barker mentioned the EFIS on the, I had EFIS on the dumpster enclosure. I would just propose to do that all red brick.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ryan. Any other questions from council?
Mayor, I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment.
Okay. Councilmember Severing?
Ryan, I have a project. I just want to endorse what's been endorsed. I really like the brick columns. I really, really like the North Ogden logo proportional to the size of the building on the sides. I think that's an incredible idea. And then I just wanted to be one who I would prefer that the monument signs be used to show the gas price as opposed. I agree with the mayor. I don't think it looks nice on the canopy. I would prefer that to be on the nicely bricked or rocked monuments. So thank you for what you've been willing to do for us.
Okay. Any other comments before we Councilman Swanson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Ryan, back to the skirt on the canopy. We answered that question yet. Is it going to be the white and green and whatever, or is it going to be more earth tone? Is there something that blends it into the building and the overall cannery rock North Ogden-y kind of feel?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skirt that. I've never been in charge of doing their signage. They always have permitted that separately, and I've seen them, spruce up the columns a lot. I've done brick on a lot of columns, but I've never seen them go away from the white column with like a red and a green stripe in locations, just for brand recognition and whatnot. But I've seen them, not light it up as much or not have it be neon, lights. It's more just at night, the only thing you see is small 7-Eleven sign,
Okay, thanks.
Your question, I think it would be the typical colors.
Any further questions, council? If not, I would be looking for a motion to approve the site plan. Yes,
This is Rob Scott.
Rob.
Just a couple comments for
Okay.
you. First of all, I forgot to mention that the landscape plan is actually to be approved by the Planning Commission. So they'll be looking at the detailed plan there. The other thing that I have a question about, and that is that west side. That's 385 East. And typically we would be seeing a streetscape that included a sidewalk, standard driveways and what have you. So we would be, I just want to make sure that we don't establish an expectation that until we get a finalized design with specific dimensions in that, that's something that I definitely want to take a little further look at.
So Rob, based upon our comments tonight, if you're saying that and once again, I've talked to John about allowing our planning department to make some of these decisions on landscape, et cetera. But are you saying that we have to wait for a final landscape plan based upon our discussion this evening before we approve this?
You can go ahead and approve it subject to the Planning Commission approving a landscape plan.
Yeah, well, my question is, wonder if the Planning Commission approves something different than the council is expecting.
Well, all I can say is that the council was the one that approved the development agreement that designated them as the approving authority for the landscape plan, so.
Well, council can always change that, I believe. But that's just my concern because, and I, once again, you've heard me say before that it's pretty tough to drag a developer through a 1.5 year plan. I believe Ryan started a 7-Eleven in another city that's open now. But I don't want to get caught up with the Planning Commission coming back with a landscape plan that's not acceptable to this council. Because this is a major situation in our city. We've had numerous discussions. We've talked about this being the entrance to our city. And, once again, that's just a concern I have. So how do we go about that, council?
Well, Mayor, if I could just make one other comment, and that is what you see before you tonight is not, in my estimation, a finalized plan.
Right.
It's one that needs to have some refinement to it. And there's no reason why that staff can't work with the applicant to identify what some of those issues are and come up with a resolution that would be something that would be accommodated by both the council and the Planning Commission.
Yeah. Because as you know, the Planning Commission came with a whole different design on this, a clock tower and all these different colors and things of that nature, which the council has not accepted. And, that's my concern. I think we've expressed our desire for the landscape plan, and I understand it has to be finalized. But it would seem like to me, your point, Rob, of working with the applicant and having a design that meets the desires of the council and presenting that to the planning commission might be a way to go. But I don't know, Councilman Swanson, you've been around for a long time. This is a little bit unique because this is kind of our entrance gateway to the city.
It is. It's an interesting situation. I would say though that knowing the plan, I can't envision any significant or major changes to what we have here. Some refinement maybe so that we have sidewalk widths and all that meets code and those kinds of things, the types of trees that are allowed and all of that. This is one commission to take the counsel and advice it. And this is what we're hoping for in general, and then see what they come up with as a final. With the refinements, not granting.
We're kind of losing you, Councilman, in and out.
Oh, did you? Is that better now?
That is.
Is that okay? Let me go back. Essentially, what I'm saying is, I don't think the Planning Commission will vary or would vary much from this. It's a nice landscaping design. Ryan, I think you've done a nice job on it. There will definitely be some refinements so that we meet code, sidewalk widths, all of that kind of good stuff. But I don't see the Planning Commission coming in and making a wholesale change to something that would be unacceptable to council. And I think it's a point where we put our trust in the Planning Commission with this, and we let them work out the minutia. This is what we'd really like to see in general, and let them work it out from there.
I'll just express my opinion at some point in time, but I would like to see our planning department be able to approve landscape plans. As Ryan can tell you, on the O'Reilly's building, there was some problems there, but I would still like Ryan, you to consider putting trees along that west side in the plan.
And Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Councilmember Barker.
As the council member over planning and planning department, I'd be happy to go to that planning commission when they develop or approve this plan to make sure that the council's thoughts get portrayed correctly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions or comments before we seek a motion? Rob, staff, Ryan?
Yeah, may I ask one question? Mr. Scott mentioned something that I was thinking about. As far as sidewalks along that, I don't know if it's a private road or the road that's already been installed. Do we know, is there a plan for sidewalks along there? As I pulled up the site plan in the development agreement just barely, and I'm not seeing any, so that made me a little concerned. I mean, most of mine is approaches, so I could certainly like stripe something or do a concrete walk, some sort of an approach through there. But I don't know if there's going to be any future sidewalks along that road. I don't know how it's been designed.
I'd have to go back and take a look at I think what we have right now is a dedication plat. If Lauren Gardner's still online, Lauren may have some insight on that one.
The only problem I really see with ours is furthering Councilman Severing's point is maybe if there's a sidewalk, there would need to be a little wider planter or something like that. We'd have to, or maybe it would just be a sidewalk. Would be the only change that I would see, but that was something Rob mentioned that, I'm sure we can figure out, but on all the plans that I've seen, I haven't seen any sidewalks along that private road.
So typically, when a project like this comes along and it ends up being a subdivision, those improvements and would be a requirement at that time.
We have Lauren with us too, Rob. Maybe we could.
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yes, the private roads within this development, the ones around the townhomes currently, they have 2 5-foot sidewalks on either side of the road. I don't know if the development agreement requires it throughout all of the private roads, but it was supposed to be a pedestrian-friendly, walkable area. So there was room sufficient to put sidewalks. I know there is a sidewalk along the section that has the car wash. And that's on the northern portion, but that's the only portion we have right now.
Yeah. And the way I'm looking at the master site plan from the development agreement, and it looks like there was a sidewalk along the west side of that road and with crosswalks from the residential into the commercial, but it doesn't show a sidewalk. And not that I'm opposed to it. I just want to make sure that that design is thought about and that it works, with everything.
And you're bringing up a very valid point. I just think we need to do a little research and we can work together on coming up with a good solution.
All right, let's do that.
Mayor, can I make one more comment?
Yes, Councilmember Severing.
I'm sorry, I'm probably prolonging this, and I don't mean to, but Rob or John, could you tell me how quick can we get this on the Planning Commission's agenda? Because I really don't want to usurp their any authority, but we've kind of prolonged, and I think it's been a good thing to some degree, but we have prolonged Ryan getting starting on this. So how soon can we get this back up on the agenda for Planning Commission approval? And if it's approved by the commission, then do we have to vote on that again as a city council? Which is going to delay us even longer?
Well, what we have before you is a preliminary plan. So once we get a finalized landscape plan, we usually can get those on an agenda within 2 weeks after we get a finalized plan.
And also if the council approved what is on the screen in front of you tonight, then Ryan and his team can start working on the building plans because they're going to have a couple weeks or more of the building design work that then will be submitted to the building department for structural purposes. And so there's a lot of things that can move at the same time while the Planning Commission is finalizing the landscape plan.
Okay, so again, then just for clarity, we can approve it tonight. It goes, the preliminary landscaping plan goes back to the Planning Commission. They approve it. We're good. Ryan moves on. Right?
John?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and let me just say one more thing, because I think this, I wasn't going to mention anything earlier. I did mention this about the planner. It's my thought, Ryan, if you like that planner, I think you should keep it. But to me, I just see that planter eventually is going to be in the way of snow plows. And to me, I just don't see the value of keeping it, but that's just my opinion. And I appreciate what you've done.
I actually agree with that, especially considering the fact that we'll likely have a sidewalk or need to plan for that. With how wide those approaches are on this design, I think it would be good to have a specific, one set apart raised sidewalk there. So I agree with that.
Once again, I guess the landscaping is up to the commission. So Councilmember Barker, has indicated he will take our desires to the planning commission. So I guess we leave that up to them. Ryan, I would appreciate if you at least try to get those trees along the west side to meet the citizens' concerns there. And once again, I just want to remind us and those who are listening in, this was an approved use in the original development agreement. So in fact, one of the plans that I've seen actually had a gas station on the corner. So this is nothing that the council is changing at this time. It's an approved use. So with that, are there any other questions or concerns before we seek a motion?
Mayor, I just wanted to point out.
Okay, Council Member Ekstrom, go ahead, please.
Yes, just back to the landscaping, that is the last thing that goes in. There's a lot of construction and things that's going to happen first. And I think that's something that can be kind of put to the side. And I trust Councilman Barker to make sure that it looks beautiful. He is a Barker and he will make sure that the garden looks absolutely beautiful. And by the time that gets all done, I really don't think we have to worry about it. So I'm good with just letting it be with just the preliminary that we have.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yes, the planning commission is the author of that. And I'm sure Ryan would be interested to, because that's out of his pocket too, as part of the construction costs, how the landscaping looks. And we surely want to make sure it's one that can be maintained easily and taken care of. So thank you, Councilwoman Ekstrom, for your comments. Those are, do you have anything else to add tonight, Councilwoman Ekstrom?
No, that's it. I'm ready to start.
All right. With that, then we would look for a motion to approve the site plan for the 7-Eleven project located at 1700 North and Washington Boulevard. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Councilmember Severing.
I move that we approve the site plan for the 7-Eleven located at 1700 North and Washington Boulevard as proposed.
Well, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? With that, all in favor of approving the site plan as motioned, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, Ryan, thanks for your good work and your patience in our 1.5-year journey here. And thank you for what you do for our city. And we look forward to working with you on additional projects.
Thank you very much. I appreciate so much all of your concern and help and direction, and it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to moving forward. So.
And thank you. And John, if you would just send Ryan a short email reminding him of the request made by the council that he's agreed to this evening, just so nothing gets out of the loop, it'd be appreciated. So thank you, council. Thank you, Ryan. And have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 5 on our agenda, which is a discussion or action to consider members of the audit committee. Our presenter will be Council Member Phil Swanson. Council Member Swanson.
Thanks, Mayor. As we all are aware and have been a part of for the last little while, we have an audit committee, and Blake Severing, Councilman Severing, had a wonderful idea to have some citizen input and eyes and ears from the citizens on that committee. We've talked to a number of individuals, and we have 2 names tonight that we would like to present to the council. Both names are pretty well known to everybody. One is Thane Schaefer. He was with Mayor Berube and others on our salary committee a number of years ago and did some great work there with the mayor. And Thane is a very smart man and knows business and accounting and things very well. And everyone knows Randy Wynn. He's been a regular at our meetings. Randy, a former business owner, entrepreneur, and much business sense and just good logic in both of these men. And so we would recommend them to you, council, for approval to be a part of that audit committee.
Okay, and Councilmember Swanson, do you just want to just refresh those who may be listening, the other members of the committee?
Right. The other members of the committee are, excuse me, Mayor Berube, myself, Councilmember Ekstrom are the primary members of the committee. And again, Councilman Severing had a great idea that we expand that committee to include some citizens and have that those unelected eyes on the things that the city's doing in the city's finances.
Thank you, Councilmember Swanson.
Mayor,
Yes, John.
I was just going to mention that we've also recommended, because of the state statute, that the city recorder be included on that committee. The state statute says the city recorder is actually the official auditor of the city.
Okay,
Well, then
yeah, I think that's mentioned in the last paragraph there. And so if Annette could just bring her certification of the CPA, cut, paste, and assemble, we'll add her to the committee. So is that okay with you, Councilmember Swanson?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Any questions before we seek a motion to approve those members? And I would concur with Councilmember Swanson that Thane and Randy will be excellent members and will give a set of eyes to that of the citizens as we quarterly review the financial statements and the audit. So if not, I would seek a motion to approve the members of the audit committee. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the members of the audit committee as discussed and named.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you, Councilmember Swanson, for putting that committee together, and we look forward to you leading that effort in our city as part of your responsibilities over finance of the city. So thank you. All right, we'll move now on to item number 6. John Call, our city manager and attorney, will present kind of the status of some of the major projects that we're working on and some that will be coming in the near future, so that we keep that in the front of our mind. So, John?
Thanks, Mayor. So, Council, this is a list that will seem very familiar to you. It focuses on 2 types of projects. One are city projects where it's city money being spent or city money that has been spent. The next group is just projects of note in the city, typically that your larger residential and commercial projects or projects that include multifamily. And then we've also included a category of projects that are completed at the very end so that we don't lose track of the things that we've done. But not a lot has changed for most of the projects. With the budget year, we scaled back a lot of the spending. For example, on the street projects, we usually were spending about $700,000. We scaled it back to $500,000 this year because of some concerns over the B&C road funds. And then we also delayed it to the spring so that we knew for sure that how much money we had collected, because we typically get it on a quarterly basis to just help with our planning. The next one, the Culinary water facility, we are still working out the details on the future location of that. We have a few options. We've honed in on one piece of property, but we haven't reached an agreement with the landowner on a price yet. And so that will be coming back to your attention at a future date if we get closer on that, or we may look at a new location if we just can't reach a solution on that. Anyways, there's no updates on the amphitheater project. The first 2 phases have been completed. The only note I've added is that the facility, it would be good to have the stage lights and speakers so that we're not renting light for performances, or at the very least, maybe look at the possibility of renting some of that equipment for season long so that we can not have the individual rentals. Sometimes, as many of you know, if you've ever rented equipment, it's just as easy or just as cheap to rent something for a week as it is for 2 days. And so it's that type of concept where we might look at a plan in the future on
And
how
John,
to.
could I just add there, that may be one of the objectives of the Arts Guild as we put that together to fundraise money for that, for lights and sound. Due to the other commitments we have, it may be difficult to find that money in the budget in the near future with some of the major projects we're looking at. So I believe in the initial outline of the charter for the Arts Guild that that would be one of their projects, is to try to raise money through sponsorships or citizen contributions in that regard. Just adding a little color there.
Yeah, no, thank you for adding that, Mayor. That's exactly in line with some of the goals I think that the staff would support. On the 2550 detention basin or 2700 basin, depending on which street you're looking at it from. The project is currently under review by the federal government. If the feds approve the environmental study and the other details that have been completed, then they would then approve the next phase, which is the design and construction phase. And that would put us into a timeline of construction starting late 2021, which would not be this budget year, but next budget year. As of right now, we haven't seen any indication from the engineers that there's going to be an issue with the federal funding, but it is always contingent on the federal funding being approved. The 400-450 East Widening, I think most of you are aware it was delayed, or most of it was delayed until spring of 2021. Oh, sorry, this should say 21. The right-of-way acquisition is almost completed. We've got 3 more properties to finalize the deal on. And we have actually started the water line portion of the project, at least on the south legs and the north legs, because as you've seen, that road has had some interruption of service with them digging a big trench across the ground. The UDOT and the city felt that it was better to do a minor interruption with that road and the trench than to try and do that trench during the construction of the project, because then it would not only inhibit traffic, but construction capabilities. And so the idea was if we could knock it out this year, then we wouldn't be doing a lot of trenching work as part of the project next year.
And John, I like how you use the term minimal interruption to traffic. Some of our citizens would strongly disagree with you at this point in time, but I do want to point out that our Public Works is working with the contractor diligently to minimize that. It's just very difficult project not to interrupt traffic. John, could you also just remind the council of the agreement we negotiated with UDOT, going east on 2600?
So the agreement the council approved earlier this year was that we would pay a portion of the costs that were capped at $850,000, as well as do the right-of-way acquisition. Most of that money came from WACOG funds, but some city funds. And then UDOT would actually handle the construction all the way to 475 East, which is the road the library is on. And so UDOT is handling all of that, which it should be really good for the city, because construction prices have been somewhat fluctuating or increasing recently, and particularly in earthwork and flat work, which would be your concrete and asphalt. And by partnering with UDOT, I think the city's going to save a significant amount of money. And I think by partnering with UDOT, the UDOT will save some money too, because we have a little bit larger scale of a project to complete, which means we should get some better prices per square foot on our materials.
The key being there that we've capped the city's risk.
Yeah. And UDOT, they do have $4 million to spend on their portion or on the project. So it's not going to be a cheap project. To put that into perspective, the cost estimate for the road headed north, which is widening, adding 2 more lanes all the way up to just past Alberta and 2850, is expected to cost the city just under $4 million, which there again, a large portion of that is grant money that came in through the I almost said the Workers' Compensation Fund.
Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Yeah, that one, that acronym. The Wasatch Front Regional Council. And so that project will cost the city not $3 million. It'll be a significantly smaller amount of money with the construction work. So I think there have been some good plans that have been put in place in the past by council to make sure that we are being frugal on that. The last item on this list is kind of just those projects that we don't have an actual funding identified in this budget year. For example, the public safety station or public safety building, we had planned some money as part of last budget year to do the analysis on, is it feasible? Do we need it? And to answer some of those questions. But there has not been any more funding approved. Same thing with Barker Park, the various rehab projects, and then other street widenings. The city's master transportation plan shows a few more street widenings in the city, but the majority of the street widenings will be completed as part of this Washington Boulevard widening, meaning this will be one of the most impactful street widenings that the city's going to see.
John, maybe just to add on, so the council knows and the public that are with us tonight, we have been talking with several contractors to come in and look at our current facility, where it's at in its lifespan and its compliance with seismic code, so that we have a complete picture of what we're dealing with. So we've talked to several general contractors that will come in and look at that. We've had some citizens ask that question, if it's usable, what's its remaining life? They want kind of an opinion on that. So we have had discussion with some folks that can come in and help us assess that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As far as the residential projects, the kind of larger ones, Cooperstown is the one at the south end of the city on Washington Boulevard. That should be coming back to the council. Right now, we anticipate at the next meeting with the revisions that the council had suggested or discussed, dealing with building heights, commercial space, and other concepts. Planning staff has been reviewing that. The village at Prominence Point, most of the townhomes and cottages have been constructed or are under construction. We don't have that timeline yet for additional units. I have spoken with the developer or the landowner, and they have said that they believe they will be pulling the permit for the clubhouse and 2 of the apartment buildings on the northern part of the project here in the next month or so. But until we see the permits, that's all we can. We typically don't count them in the fee resources as part of that. I will mention that I know the council's aware of this based on an email that went around last week that I had responded to. The city has not waived any impact fees for this project. And so we do anticipate a full receipt of impact fees and other items to help offset some of the projects that are the city paid for projects, like future parks, water lines, and sewer projects and things like that. The next one down is I titled it wrong. I titled it the ranches. It's actually the Patriot Point project. they will start their underground work here in the next little while so that they can start going vertical with their buildings in the spring, and even probably into the winter, depending. But that's the one that's kind of southwest of the pool on the old Double Lot Ranch, and south of the new detention basin location that we've discussed in the past, or discussed above the 2550 basin relocation. And then the North Hills project, we've called it the North Cove, but the developer has given it an official name now, which is the North Hills. The council had a work session. The developer is working on some details, and the staff is working on some details. And I think that we will have another discussion about this item in the coming months. And I think the focus of that is going to be on density. As the council's aware, the initial request that they showed had about 650 units on 200 acres or 200 plus acres. And so that's going to be probably the biggest question that the council and the landowner are going to be working through, is what the density is going to look like. To put that into perspective, that's a little over 3 units to the acre, which is fairly consistent with most of the city that is the R1 zones. That's a fairly good average, is about 3 units to the acre. But there are other things to consider, including the city's plan for this as a hillside protection area, and exactly what that means on the lot size, and those sorts of things. And so I think there'll be a lot of discussion coming your way. So just be prepared for that.
I believe right now, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's in the county right now, and the county allows for 1 unit per acre.
Correct. And so that'll be the conversation point, is what will the county give? What would the city give? And how do we make sure, if it does develop in the near future, that it's a win for the city and a win for the landowner? And I think there's a lot of room to agree and to disagree. And the nice thing is, with that annexation, the city has a lot more leeway on what it will agree to as part of the annexation, because they're not in the city right now. So
I think it was, John, I think it was very clear in our work session, as I recall from just almost every council member, that density was the major issue. And so it should be no surprise to the developer by any means.
Yeah. And then the projects that are completed, the Monroe Boulevard acquisition has been completed. We did have excess funds that were WACOG funds that were returned to WACOG. But as part of that return, the city also was able to work out a deal to get additional acquisition funds on the UDOT project at the intersection. So even though we sent back, I think, about $1 million, I guess it was a little under that, it was about 800. We ended up getting back $500,000 in additional money for another project. So,
and John, I understand there's a potential development along there that we may be asked to get some of that money back to help with that development along the corridor.
We have had at least 2 landowners who refused to sign the acquisition that have now listed their properties for sale and are now requesting the city find that money again or get that money again. It would be up to WACOG if that money is going to be available, because it is a significant expense to pay for land to just dedicate it as roadway. So we always tell people, in fact, I talked to a few folks, and when they asked, should they sell or shouldn't they, I told them absolutely sell it, because the city is paying you for money that you'll get to basically use rent free, as long as you maintain it as you have until the road is built, and the road won't be built until the land is developed and the person builds the road. So it kind of ended up, I know several landowners did sell, but we had a few that were that felt like it wasn't a good deal and are wishing that they would have sold. So.
Okay.
And then the last one is the Debris Basin above 3,100. We do show it as 100% complete. We are going to be doing some looking at the reseeding. We seeded a bunch, and then we had a really dry spring and a hot summer, and some of the seeds didn't take. And so we're looking at doing some more seeding in the future. It's not a significant expense for the size of property, but it is something that we'll be looking to do to just make sure that the hillside will not look as scarred as it does right now and start to look more natural in the coming years. So, and any questions about any of those?
Council? Looks like there is none, John. Thank you for that report. Appreciate your efforts in putting that together to keep it on our forefront of our minds. Let's move on then to council reports. Councilmember Barker, do you have a report for us this evening on building and planning? Anything you'd like to apprise the council of?
Yeah, the General Plan Steering Committee still meeting monthly. They're actually making lots of progress on their general plan update. Last month we talked about downtown area between 2550, 2700 north and what they'd like to see in that. They'll be bringing a report here soon. We're trying to decide whether we want to bring it all at once or piecemeal it and bring it as we get stuff done. Then we also, I'm on the mosquito board. We met last night. As of right now, there's 5 cases of West Nile in the state of Utah, 0 in Weber County. And then they are still out spraying for mosquitoes if anybody still needs them. Otherwise, they're kind of winding down for the year. And that's my report.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Swanson, how's the finances of the city?
Well, the finances so far are looking good. The last report that I saw that we all received from Evan was that tax collection, the sales tax portion was running, in the last report that we got, was 17% above what we had projected, what we had proposed and projected for our budgetary purposes. I'm still quite leery as to whether or not that will hold through the remaining of the year. And with the COVID spike that we've seen recently was in several counties, new restrictions that were imposed today by the governor, and the coming cooler weather and flu season, I would not say that while the taxes have been looking good, I won't say that we're out of the woods. We could be just around the corner from that mountain lion down in Provo. And other than that, the departments are doing well at staying within or under budget, and we're moving forward quite nicely. Drawn a blank here. The cautious way that we approached budgeting this year has proved to be beneficial. It's much better to under budget and then things come in better than it is to over budget and things come in worse. And we're in that enviable position right now where other cities and organizations are not.
Okay, thank you, Council Member Swanson. And I know I've, in discussions with Evan, progress on the audit is moving along in preparation. The auditors will be in shortly to examine our books. And so I think that's moving along well too. So thank you for that report. We'll go to item number 8 now, which is public comments. John, if you would watch for any public comments.
We do have a hand raised. It's Corey Lynn. I'm not going to pronounce her last name because I'll get it wrong, but she should be able to unmute herself and speak.
Okay, and she'll state her name and address, so we'll get the correct pronunciation, John, for you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Corlin, thank you.
Hey, you got it right. Corey Lynn Hitala is the last name.
Okay, and your
Finished.
address?
It's 218 East, 1850 North.
Okay,
I'm in
thank you.
the Village at Prominence.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you for listening to my comments. I had a few that I'm concerned with I wasn't even aware of the 7-Eleven. So I'm glad I was available to watch tonight. And my big concern with that, along with other concerns in the Village at Prominence, is the traffic. And those roadways are so narrow. If their only entrance to that 7-Eleven is off that 385 East, I'm concerned about traffic problems there. I don't know if there's any way to get those roads any wider. I don't know how many of you have driven down in through there. We have major parking issues. There's not enough parking for the residents, and people are parking on the sidewalks or they're parking on the street, and getting through there, especially in the evenings after everybody's home from work, is a little treacherous. Along with the lighting, they haven't turned on the street lights in there. So when you've got kids out there where it's not light as long anymore, that's a scary hazard down in there. And they're also putting the dumpsters are still on the roadway rather than on the lots. So you only have 1-lane roads. Along with all the construction, I understand there's construction vehicles, but when you've got hardly any roadway to begin with, you get those trucks in there trying to get in and out is a concern. And the parking with the car wash, they're parking their employees' vehicles on the sidewalks, and they have their towel returns on the sidewalks. So even though we have a 5-foot sidewalk, you really don't. And that's concerning to not just me, but several of us in the development. That's a concern with the 7-Eleven as well. Parking, getting people in and out of there functionally without a lot of problems is a concern. I realized that we were going to have developments up there on the east side that are going to be businesses, which I would rather have the businesses than all the people that they're trying to stick in that small footprint. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. The other concern I had, I don't know if the council or the city can do anything with it, but there's several of us that are concerned about what they're going to do with the center part on the west end by the patio homes. You have patio homes, and then there's a big part in the middle that when I first looked at buying and building there, there was nothing there. So we assumed, which we all know what that does, that it was going to be a green space or some kind of a park or something. And come to find out, they're planning on putting a 3-story 55 and older facility with underground parking, is what we're being told. And with the amount of people we already have in there, and you're going to put apartments, I'm just really am concerned that the city is taking on more than they should in putting that many people in that small of a footprint. You're just looking for problems. You end up having more thefts, more issues like that. And that's the other concern with the lighting not being on, is with all the vehicle burglaries that have been occurring in the area, that we're just sitting ducks down there without a lot of lighting. We all try and make sure that we have our porch lights on to at least give us something down there, but it is really dark. And I'm not sure if you guys know anything about the lots on the west end, that they were having the Corps of Engineers look at the creek because I guess the surveys were incorrect. If you know anything, if they've got those approved to get any buildings on there.
All good points, Corlin. Really appreciate your comments and your concerns. I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, that the development agreement does provide for certain buildings in there, and one of them is the 55 and older, where you described that there has been some discussion about maybe moving that over closer to the south end of the project, but I believe that as part of the original development plan, that there can be that it's actually I understand it starts at 4 stories and slopes down to 3 stories. And it is a 55 and older thing, but I think that was in the original development plan as approved several years ago. John, if we could get somebody down to look at the comments about parking on the sidewalk and utilization of the sidewalk for other than its intended use would be good, and to address Corlin's other concerns. I don't believe there's any plans or opportunity to widen that road. I think, as Lauren said, it was scheduled as was it a collector road, John? 1700?
1700 is the collector road. All the other roads are internal private roads.
Uh-huh.
The
And the
1700 is pretty busy. It's a thoroughfare down to Highway 89.
Yep, it's
So it is getting pretty busy.
yes.
But the parking is a big issue down in there, where there's people just parked on the street, like I say. And then you've got kids that are playing, which they're gonna, and running in and out from those cars, and it's just a little terrifying. And I'm worried about where they're gonna put snow. Where are they gonna be able to get snow plows in there?
We've got great
and
public
snow
works
removal.
So
Pardon?
I say our public works group is really good, so I'm sure they'll get that figured out. But what we'll do is, John, if you could get somebody down to look at that. I don't know the specific answer to the lighting situation, but I think that is definitely a good point with, higher density and the crime we're seeing. Lights sometimes can deter that, but
Yeah.
can we get somebody down to look at the concerns?
Yes, I've written down the street lights, the dumpsters, and then the cars on the sidewalk as things that can be addressed. And even if, because they're private property, there's some things we can't enforce, but there might be some things that we could work with the fire department if there's some access issues that we could help enforce with that, as well as I think the HOA hasn't been instigated or started yet, or the management company, but I think they are coming with the clubhouse. And that will help a lot as well by having an on-site professional manager to help with parking and other issues too. So, but I'll see what I can find out, and then we'll have someone follow back up with.
Reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we do have an HOA. It's still under the developer at this point. I guess you have to have a certain amount of residents before you can start having residents involved in it. So there is a management company at this time. But we've addressed it with them, and nothing gets done either. So it'd be nice to have a little bit more input from others to maybe get some action.
We'll get somebody down there to look at the issues you've brought up, and I know a good portion of the development has been sold to a developer that is working very well with the city and is a good citizen. And John, just maybe the answer, the last thing is the creek and the restoration of that. The latest inquiry I've had with the developer is we haven't heard back from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
But also the developer has made some commitments to preserve and improve the creek as the development takes place. John, do you want to add anything further on the Army Corps, where the creek runs through some of the property lines and it's going to have to be rerouted to build on those lots?
You said it exactly right, Mayor. And the 3 of those lots are restricted until the improvements are in. They won't get building permits. So it's kind of we're waiting for the Army Corps to give the go ahead before we can start the process of cleaning up the area.
Does that answer your
Okay.
questions, Corlin? And we'll get down there and see what we can do to help.
And
Thank
Mayor,
you very much.
Yes, and I did want to point out that we have one of the most outstanding fire marshals in the state that's in our city that can get down there and look at access. So anyway, Councilmember Barker, did you want to make a comment?
I was going to say, I can put on my other hat tomorrow. I'm actually getting out more and getting back around. I've worked with Nate and Bruce in the building department with down there. And where those patio homes are, they're only supposed to be putting dumpsters on one side of the street so that we can have access. And we realize that it is tight during construction, but that's the best we can do is allow them to put them on one side of the street. They don't want to put them out in the dirt because once we get this weather turning, it's going to turn to mud and they'll make a mess of everything when they go in and out. And with the car wash, I'll go speak with them as well. They're not supposed to be parking on the sidewalks. So I can do all that in the next day or two. But
Great,
also work with Nate.
Once again, this evidence of having the most outstanding fire marshal in the state working here in North Ogden. So
Wonderful. Thank you all.
thank you for joining us and thank you so much for your comments. Councilman Swanson, do you have a comment?
Yes, I was going to comment on the snow plowing on those private roads. I don't believe the city is doing that plowing. The developer, the HOA is responsible for all of the plowing on those private roads.
And we're just doing 1,700
That's correct.
in Washington. Okay.
So we have a hand raised from Julie Anderson.
All right, let's hear from Julie with her full name and address.
This is Julie Anderson, 940 East, 2600 North. Just wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention tonight. First of all, I've noticed there's been a lot of people in the dog park after dark. They have flashlights. And when I got looking on the fence, it says that the dog park is open till 10 p.m. So of course they're not breaking any rules. But the problem is they're parking on that street, which does not have very good lighting. And I'm really worried that somebody's going to get hit or hurt right there on 850. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to your attention. And maybe you can discuss and see ways to maybe, I don't know. I know it's a park, but it's not really a park. It's a retention basin. And so I worry about that. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is as campaigns that are going up, there are signs that are going up on like city property and in the line of sight triangles. And so I would hope maybe if the city notices them, I'm not going to name names here. That's not why I'm doing it. I just want to make sure that, it's done right, that, people aren't going to, I don't know, go to war. We live in those kind of times. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention to the council tonight, to make sure that, that those running for office do follow the guidelines that are put in place for political signs. Other than that, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Julie, for your comments. And I can assure you that particularly with city property, we're very firm on that. And also, I think it would not be wise for us to endanger our traffic with having those in the inappropriate places. So we'll get our code enforcement officer to take a look at those. So thank you so much for your comments. John, is there anything else?
Nope, that's the last hand.
Thank you. We're always appreciative and hope that more of our citizens will join us so we can share ideas and hear their perspective on things. So appreciate you joining us. Let's go then on to item 9, which is our council, mayor, and staff comments. Let's start with the council. Do we have any comments from the council this evening?
Mayor.
Councilmember Swanson.
Just a quick one to echo what Julie Anderson said about the campaign signs. It's become a bit of a crazy free-for-all out there. And I'm grateful that she brought that up and that we will have our code enforcement out there looking at signs and where they're placed and how big they are and where they are and those kinds of things.
I've noticed we've got what appears to be out of compliance with some size signs also. So
Yes.
I think you're right, Councilmember Swanson. If we don't enforce it now, we're creating a pretty slippery slope. And we want to be flexible. We don't want to be, but when it comes to the safety and on city property, I think we've really got to be on top of that. So thank you.
Gwen, I think it's important to remind our candidates as well that signs on private property need to be done with the permission of the landowner. Just because it's on a commercial corridor down Washington or one of the others, it's still private property. And I've been contacted by a couple of landowners that wanted to know who gave particular candidate permission to put signs up on their land. And I just instructed them to call the campaign themselves and find out and go from there.
I've had that same question and I've just said you authorized it. So good points. Thank you. Any other comments from council this evening? Okay, I do have a couple comments and John may expand on these. We've had numerous comments about our garbage collection service. And John has worked closely with Republic. They have added an additional account manager to our account. They're facing the very same thing we faced, is the volume is just overwhelming. But I think the conversation we've had with them is we need responses, because I believe our citizens look to us. It's our contract with the city, and when we're unable to answer their questions, it's a very difficult situation for our people. So I think the information flow will be improved, and I think John's done a good job working with them. I do want to review. I get every week a report on COVID cases in the county, and that comes in by city. In the last month, Weber County has had almost a 44% increase in the number of COVID cases, which is fairly substantial. And back on September 9th, North Ogden residents had been tested positive. There were 92 residents living in our city who had tested positive for COVID. The most recent report I received as of today is we have 151 of our citizens who've had a positive test result with COVID. So once again, we can see that we're not exempt from what's going on with the spike. And just a word of caution, I think, for those of you who heard the governor's comment today, he is looking for local government and the citizens to understand the significance of what's going on and try to comply. I believe Weber County was classified in the moderate category today. We have numerous counties in the state that are high risk. I think we have 8 counties that are in the low risk. So just a report there. Also, just a reminder, the council and John and myself and others will be working on this. But when we did our budget, we made some commitments that if at certain points we saw increases in the revenues beyond our expectations, that we would look at some reinstatement of some of the things we cut from the budget. In my discussion with John today, there may be some of those things that are cut permanently, but we did make some commitments. And so we'll be looking at those and bringing those back to the council here in the near future. And the other conversation we're having is a reminder to the council. We did receive some CARES Act money in regards to COVID. I think our last receipt was in excess of $500,000. It has been confirmed that that money can be used for public safety salaries. And one of the things, just to introduce the concept, no decisions made, just in discussion, is the potential for some hazard pay for our public safety officers who have been called out into homes not knowing, if they're facing a COVID situation or whatever. John's doing some research on that and will shortly be coming back to the council with a discussion on that issue. And probably the most rewarding part of my day today is I had a opportunity to go visit 2 third grade classes over at North Ogden Elementary, which was pretty awesome. Their teachers had them write a letter to the mayor. It was kind of fill in the blanks of what they liked about North Ogden. And I had an opportunity to meet a very interesting young man who came up to me and said, "Mayor, did you know my dad fell off a roof?" And I looked at him, I said, "Is Ryan Barker your dad?" To which he responded, "Yeah, he's my dad." To which I responded, "He's a good man." But I just want to give a shout out to our educators, our teachers. It reminded me today as I saw these 2 classes of 3rd graders and their rambunctiousness and trying to keep their masks on and things, just the hard work that our teachers put in taking care of our young citizens. And just want to give a shout out to our teachers and let them know how much we appreciate, because these kids will be our future city council members. They'll be our future mayors, and just reminded me of just how difficult sometimes that work is, and particularly in the circumstances of today. So that's my report. I don't know if you have any questions or comments on those items that some will be addressing in future council meetings. If not, John, Annette, any reports from staff, department heads that are with us this evening?
I do have one item, Mayor, maybe 2. We have
John, is it 1 or 2? You've got to decide now.
Okay, 2.
Okay, we'll go with 2. All right.
We have received a request from a commercial individual who would like to buy a piece of property in the Village at Prominence Point commercial area. It is it's a restaurant, and I'm going to send you an email about it. They would like to request a drive-through. They have proposed some pictures to show how it would work. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. And I'm going to send it out in an email. I'm specifically not talking about the specifics of what type of restaurant or anything like that, partly just to preserve some advantage to them if they are moving forward, that they don't have to compete with others who might be in their same market. But I'll shoot it over to you, and it'll identify a lot of information if you'll just kind of keep that somewhat confidential, at least until they can make a decision or present to the council and share the information they would like to. And then the other thing was I went with the mayor this morning and took some pictures, and the third graders in the city are really smart, because one of them suggested that the mayor should run for president. So Mayor Berube is taking that under advisement.
I did, and I responded to the 3rd grade student that I'm still learning how to be mayor. So, but they're sure cute little kids.
Yeah, and
they're awesome.
That's all I've got.
All right. Any other comments from council? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening. Do we have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion by Council Member Severing. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Council Member Ekstrom, thank you. Any opposed to adjourning this meeting? All right, thank you very much for your service tonight, and have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.